The main claim that I'm responding to today is iPhone's iOS is the better smartphone operating system. There were two supporting claims presented that I'm going to be responding to. The first one is that iPhones are better quality than Androids, and the second one is that iPhones have better security. In response to the first supporting claim that iPhones are better quality than Androids, there was a quote used from Zach Epstein, who is the executive of BGR, which is a well-recognized online news and review site. He said, "Yes, of course, there are still plenty of Android features that are nowhere to be found on Apple's smartphone lineup. But where key features are concerned, features that are truly unique and useful to mass market smartphone owners, there isn't much on Google's mobile platform that's missing from Apple's phones." This quote is weak evidence as support for Apple because it's not proving that Apple is better. It's just saying that iPhones have caught up to and are now comparable to Androids. The first line where he says, "Yes, of course, there are still plenty of Android features that are nowhere to be found on Apple's smartphone lineup." That's an insult to Apple by saying that the company lacks plenty of features that Androids have. And another example for the first supporting claim that was used was Apple Pay. And the speaker used a quote from Business Insider that said that Apple Pay is still in its early days, but so far, Apple is the only company that has created an easy-to-use mobile payment platform that is accepted at a lot of major retailers. Plus, Apple Pay has support from most major credit card companies and banks. It wasn't stated when this quote is from, so it's possible that this information was relevant at the time, but it's no longer accurate because Apple Pay is the same concept as Android Pay. I went onto the Android website and they promote Apple Pay and said that it's accepted at millions of stores wherever contactless payments are accepted. It's also available in your favorite apps and online. In response to the second supporting claim that iPhones have better security, he said that iPhones now have fingerprint sensors. This allows quick access and unique security. No one can peek over and see your code. And while this finger scanning technology does provide good security, it should also be acknowledged that Androids also have the same fingerprint sensor technology. According to Android Central, it's pretty easy to see that 2015 was the year that Android phones started getting some really great fingerprint sensors, with several different manufacturers either getting into the game for the first time with great offerings or iterating on old designs to get something that's more consistent and easier to use. Samsung, LG, OnePlus, and HTC, just to name a few, have all gotten into simple one-touch fingerprint sensors on at least one of their smartphones. And this quote was from 2015, so 2 years later in present time, as technology advances, so do fingerprint scanners, and they become more advanced and secure for iPhones, but also for Androids. So many of the points that the speaker used to sell Apple are valid, but the speaker failed to mention that Androids have those same features. There was a quote used from Macworld.com that started with, "iOS is a more secure platform than Android." It continues to talk about how iPhones are more secure than Androids, and it finishes the quote by saying, "The U.S. Department of Homeland Security estimated in 2013 that just 0.7% of malware threats were aimed at iOS, and while this is partly because Androids have more users, it's mainly because Android is simply an easier target." Saying that Android has more users is a compliment to Google, but it's not safe to assume that the main reason why more threats were aimed at Android is because it's an easier target. There was no proof that said that, or that indicated why or how it is an easier target. And also this quote was taken from a website called Macworld.com, and it introduces itself on the website as being your best source for all things Apple, which is biased in favor of Apple products. And also this quote was from 2013, so the statistics presented were 4 years old, and by now there's probably more accurate, more recent data that he could have used. And another point for a second supporting claim was a quote from Livewire.com that said, "Google offers its Android software to many phone makers, for example, Samsung, HTC, LG, Motorola, and etc. And as a result, Android phones vary quite a bit in size, weight, features, user experience, and quality." And while he used this as support for Apple, I think some people might see this variety and diversity and selection that Android phones have as a positive asset for Android. And like many people in my personal life, including myself, like have wanted to get the newest iPhone just because it's like the newest version, but there's not really that many improvements or new features. And with Apple products or Apple phones, many they tend to be like the newest version tends to be really similar to the latest. So to conclude, while the two supporting claims provide a good argument for the main claim, that iPhone's iOS is the better smartphone operating system, some of the quotes were unreliable, outdated, or in favor of Android.
Okay, the structural stuff is fine at the beginning. The first point, by the way, when we're talking about quality, I think you might want to point out that that's a value claim, and we need to look at some objective criteria for making such a comparison. It appears that the main comparison that's being made here is the number of features that are available. And I like the analysis that you had of the advocate's own evidence, which suggests at best it's a backwards compliment that Apple has finally caught up, as opposed to a clear indication that Apple is superior when it comes to the features. I thought that that was a reasonable interpretation of the information and the way it was presented. The example of Apple Pay I thought was a good response on this argument. You had some evidence that said Android Pay is the equivalent. It works in all the same places, and it's as widespread as the other. That suggests that there isn't any significant reason to prefer iOS over any other operating system. The second issue on security, I think this is the place where there is maybe the strongest argument that the advocate presents. You have a good response on the first section, which is the fingerprint thing. I think you've got good counterclaims here, a demonstration that Android has the same technology, that it's likely to have gotten better since it was introduced. That all makes sense. The place where you are stretching it a little bit, if 0.7% of the malware is created for iOS, there's got to be some reason that all the rest is going to the Android market, and the idea that it is essentially more easily targeted, I don't think that that seems like an unreasonable thing to suggest. You say, well, there's no proof of that. However, I'm not even sure I need any proof of that. If they are targeted, so much more than the iOS, that seems to suggest that there is a problem. Whether it's easy for them or not, it certainly is a bigger target for them. There might be other arguments that you could make on this issue. For instance, security issues that have been provided, apps that address those kinds of issues, legal responsibility issues that mitigate some of the potential problems of the malware. And it might turn out that even though it's, as a percentage, the malware is so substantially more on the Android platform, we still don't know how much it is in total, so it might be relatively small, and we didn't get any information on that. I think you've got a good argument here talking about how the variations in Androids is actually a positive in contrast to the Apple, although I think you could use a little bit of information here that suggests that people like to have that particular kind of variety. That might be indicated by sales figures, for instance. And then on the last point where you're talking about how the updates of each iOS system are really limited, that's mostly an assertion on your part. I think you need some information to support that conclusion. All right, thank you.